to Let's Move with Barry podcast, and I have Etch as my special guest today, and we're going to talk about how low the inventory is in the housing market, and now is a good time to sell, believe it or not.
We're getting on it. We're trying, giving it the old college try. Yeah, there is a very huge lack of inventory, like you said, especially in a certain price range. I see that there's it's almost like divided up. And it's the ones that are like, do you really want those houses? There seems to be an abundance of those. And the affordability ones where it's like, here, this is my value house. This is my fixer-upper, which is going to cost an additional 50, 60 grand to do.
Or 100.
Yeah, or 100, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then there's the ones that are like, these are move-in ready. These are in the 200,000s. And then there's the, hey, we have a whole lot of money. We're not worried about it anyway. This is the one we want kind of house. So which I saw you have one that's for sale right now in Canadian Lakes. And I'm like,
yes.
Beautiful house.
Oh my gosh. Not to go down this rabbit hole, but that house.
Unreal.
If you love waterfront, this is the house that you got to buy.
Yeah.
Because every window but one has a view of water.
See, I'm in the wrong profession because I need that in my life.
I wanted to buy it myself.
It's
it was
beautiful.
So beautiful. I can't believe it's still on the market, to be honest.
Oh, I was just waiting for it to be like, oh, that's already snatched up, because there's somebody who's just waiting for a place like that that's got that kind of money that's ready to roll. But like you said, when it comes to the ones that are move-in ready to go, it's a very slim market right now as far as what's up for sale.
There is. And all the sellers are too, they're sitting on a 3% interest rate. I think we talked about that the last time where, like, do we move or don't we move?
Yep.
So it's all situational. But because of the lack of inventory, you still have to strategize how you're putting your house on the market. And, you still can have yourself in a multiple offer situation. Now, with interest rates coming up, we're starting to see just a little bit more inventory, but not enough to really go for the demand that's out there. And if you really come onto the market and strategize, with your agent, you're going to get multiple offers. Like, for example, I have a story. So yesterday, I just closed on a house in Sparta. Now, granted, that's, closer to the major city, Grand Rapids. But we got $40,000 over list price for that house.
Wow.
We had 11 offers on that property in 9 days on the market.
Goodness.
So how did we do it? So our strategy was, so there was a price range from 190 clear up to about 250, 230, 250 for that house. Well, the seller was in a position that he really wanted to sell the home. Okay. So he's like, let's go on the lower end. And I said, that is a really great idea, because that was a strategy I was going to, discuss with him. And so he just agreed. And we went on the market at the low end. We went at $189.9, and we sold it for $230,000.
Gosh, that's amazing.
So it's all about strategy, how you position yourself on the market, even in a low inventory, because a lot of sellers are thinking, well, it's low inventory, I can ask what I want, right? I mean, mentality, that's what I would think too. Like, I could ask $1 million. Somebody's bound to come along and give me $1 million, right? That's not always the case, So you want to make it lucrative for a buyer to want to put an offer in, or several buyers. We've all been to auctions, right?
Yep.
How many times have you seen something you really don't need, or you really want it?
I hate to admit.
And you overbid for it. Yeah. It's kind of the auction effect that I say when it comes to the housing market. You put yourself down at a more reasonable, affordable price.
Right. Yeah, because that's when, obviously that's when the bidding wars happen, because you see the one that you want. And it's usually something that's like, that's the charm that I'm looking for. There's some feature of that house that you're like, I'm sold on that. That's the one that I want. And you look at how you can envision your life moving forward at this place, and you see down the road how different features of the house will come into play. Christmas time, an open floor plan, tall ceilings, you got a nice big tree.
Oh my gosh, Christmas time. Let's talk about Christmas time and staging your house.
Yep.
Best time to sell a house ever.
Yeah.
You might as well put a red bow on the door.
Yeah.
Because it's all decked out for Christmas.
Yep.
And if you're walking into this house and you're like, oh my gosh, I can have a 12-foot tree, and I've got little Turley Balm tree right now, and I
Right.
can't wait to have a 12-foot tree. And they're already seeing it all decorated. I mean, it's a perfect time to sell.
Now just make sure you don't do what we do, which is clutter. we
happens.
sometimes overdo it when it comes to decoration, but then again, we have a 10-year-old, so it's one of those like
Well,
you got to put everything out, and she wants to have her decorations that she made, and
I
you know.
understand that. I myself live in a pretty modest house, and I have 6 Christmas trees. So everybody's like, why do you need 6 Christmas trees? No, they're not all the 12-footers or 10-footers. I
Right.
mean, I have them all various sizes all over the place, but I love Christmas.
Mhm.
And so that's me. I'm the one that has all the Christmas trees. And I've walked into houses that they've had a lot more than 6 Christmas trees.
One for each room and maybe 2 for each room. We'll see.
Or I've seen have you seen, and we're going down a Christmas rabbit hole here, which we could spend all our time on, but the caboose, the train cabooses around the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I always thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's what my wife has always wanted. She's like, we got to get a Christmas train sometime. And
Yeah.
I had one when I was a kid, the old Lionel trains, and they were super cool.
Yeah.
So that's something special. But one of the things that we actually find, because we're, selling our house right now, our daughter, she comes down with a picture on her iPad, and she's like, look what I did to my room. She rearranged her whole room. This is the way that I want it. We're like,
On the new house?
no, on our house that we're right now. And we're like, okay, we appreciate what you did. Okay. I love the creativity here. However, we got to have it staged a certain way so that it looks more spacious. She took the bed and she put it right in the middle. And it's like, okay, that's cute, but it really makes the room go, because it's an A-frame room.
Okay.
So instead of she has a day bed too. So it's like, okay, well, you put it kind of funky, and so it's one of those things that it doesn't click with her because she's so young as to why.
Why does it need to be staged?
Right. So we're like, look, when we sell, we promise you can do whatever you want with your room. You can stage it however you want. Put this there, that there. We'll paint it whatever color you want. That's fine.
There is no doubt about it. It's painful to keep your house staged and perfect at all times. It is very stressful to go through the selling process. Especially with last minute showings. There's a lot of times that agents will call up and say, I got a buyer that's in the area who really wants to see your house.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't done the breakfast dishes, and oh my gosh, I got to put dirty laundry away, so it really stresses sellers out. But it's always worth it in the end, because, if you can walk into that house and it looks decluttered and smells nice, and that buyer could actually envision themselves in that house, and that's what the goal is, right?
Yep.
Even in a low inventory. I mean, low inventory doesn't mean that we don't do small repairs or even the big repairs. Like maybe you need a roof and you've been putting it off, and you might want to do that, because even in a low inventory, buyers are still negotiating. Mm-hmm. They're still going to negotiate those big repairs. We've talked about this before in past podcasts, and they're still doing it. And now we're getting to the point where even with a low inventory, we're starting to see what we call seller's concessions. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that the seller is just contributing back to the buyer's closing costs or prepaids. Yep. Because of the interest rates coming up, affordability has went down. Mm. So, that's another thing that sellers can offer to make their house more lucrative. We talked about home warranties before on past podcasts. All of that. If you bought down some points, you could buy down some interest rate points and be down to possibly 6, maybe 5.5%, 6%, which is going to make it more affordable for your buyer. Mm-hmm. Now, that's only for a 2-year term. That doesn't, not for the life of the loan, but still, in a couple of years, maybe the interest rates will come back down and you can refinance. So it is just, even in low inventory, we're still seeing some struggles. We are, because interest rates are up there. So even with the low inventory, we still have to be creative at how we market or how we approach the market with our listings.
Now you bring up like the percentage of the interest rate, and if you're sitting at a $200,000 house, so it's hovering right below $200,000 for a 3-4 or $200,000 to $2,000 for like a 3-4 bedroom house that is a good, decent size or has the space or lawn or whatever landscape that you want and stuff. If you're looking at it that way, and I'm thinking back to before I got married and my wife and I moved into her house, but I'm thinking about how much rent costs me, and just for a 1 bedroom. And if you're renting right now, you're sitting there going, oh, I'm too afraid right now. But if you really look at it, apples to apples, for a 4-bedroom house in Big Rapids right now, $1,500-$1,600, and you're not building equity. We've talked about this before.
Right.
So if you're in that sector that you're going, I don't know if it's the right time. And I think last podcast we had talked about, if you wait, interest rates come down, prices go back up, and then you're sitting here going, okay, now I'm right where I was anyway, with no room to wiggle.
And you're not building any wealth for yourself. You can pull that equity out of your investment, which is your home.
Yep.
To go do different things with. You can't do that when you rent a house.
Yeah.
You're helping your landlord build their wealth.
Yep.
That's how that works. So if I could tell you that you could get into a bigger house for the same amount that you're paying rent and building your own wealth, wouldn't that be lucrative? Because you can. It's possible. And everybody's like, well, I don't have 20% down. There's so many programs, and I think we've talked about this too on past podcasts. There's so many programs out there that can help you if you don't have that down payment. There's a program called MISHDA, and MISHDA will help with your down payment. There's RD loans, which is rural development. That's a 0% down. FHA is 3.5% down, of the purchase price. So, like if it's $100,000 house, you need $3,500.
Right.
And that's just for your down payment. Of course, there's closing costs on top of that, but you can negotiate that into your purchase agreement and have the seller cover that if they're able and willing to.
And if you think about it, I'm thinking again back to my rental times and stuff, and I was at a point at some points where I couldn't afford a nice place when it came to renting because rent was too high in the areas that I lived at, downtown Orlando, Florida, those kinds of places. Forget it. It's ridiculous. Back, I think in the early 2000s, I was already paying $900 a month. It was insane for a 1 bedroom. Wow. It was crazy. So just think of what inflation's done to that. But then I think about all of the houses where I basically was living that I had slumlords, that people who were just, they didn't care. Things broke up. Don't know what to tell you. I ended up fixing a lot of my own stuff that was their property, but I was fixing it because they would never come back in. But I think about those things and I'm thinking, even to get out of the rental situation and to start buying something that would work in that time, even if it's a fixer-upper, even if it's something that's not your dream house at the moment, to get to that point, now that I'm a little older, I see the picture way more clearly that you start there and then you work your way up.
You always got to have stepping stones. I mean, my very first house was a single wide 14 by 70 trailer, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. That's all I could afford back then, And now I still live in a modest house, 1,425 square foot house. Do I dream of mansion someday? Yeah, but who has to clean that?
Exactly.
And you've got to have stepping stones. And you've got to be able to get into a home that's affordable and not just be house poor. You want to be able to live life too. I mean, oh my goodness, we talked about inflation too in our past podcasts. I mean, just groceries alone anymore are just ridiculous. And that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, right.
But you don't want to be house poor. You want to be able to take vacations with your family. You want to be able to buy that leather couch or whatever for your house, So live within your means and start somewhere because you're going to build that wealth and then you take the equity out of that house and then you go to the next stepping stone and get a bigger house and then just keep doing it. I have a lot of people that I've helped that retired and their families moved out of their home and now they're like, I really love my house, but it's too big. I don't want to clean it. My knees are shot. My hips are gone, I just can't do this anymore. Their life has changed, and it's just a cycle. and maybe they want to be snowbirds or live in a full-time RV. I've actually helped people do that. Where they sell their primary house and they live in an RV and happier than all get out. I mean, I think I would like that lifestyle.
It'd be different. I actually have a friend from high school that her and her husband, he's very well off. They lived in Phoenix, sold their house I don't know, this is probably like 2020, just pre-COVID. They bought a big old RV with the idea that they were going to build a different house from scratch. But then they had the RV and this land that they had out in the middle of what I view as the desert in Arizona. I couldn't do it. Scorpions everywhere. But they've lived there since 2000, maybe just pre-2000. And they've got like chickens and all this stuff now. They're like, we're not going anywhere. We're not moving anywhere. We're going to stay right here. We love it here. The kids have area. We're not like, because in Phoenix, I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's a house on top of house on top of house.
It is.
And then, property taxes are just unbelievably high as opposed to, I just have land. There's no house on it, but I have my RV there. Right. And it's, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is like it's like a tour bus RV. It's unbelievable. But at the same time, they're happy in that.
Yeah.
And that's something to think of is, what makes you happy. We talked about it. My wife and I talked about, big house, all these things. And we're like, that'd be awesome. However, if we don't have the money to furnish it, then all we have is just way too many extra storage spaces that we're just going to put and accumulate junk in and just go.
You're going to work every day, day in, day out, just to afford your house.
Right.
That's not fun.
No.
That is not fun at all. The house is supposed to be your comfort zone, not your nemesis, I guess. Is I'm a choice of words, but it needs to be your comfort zone where you feel comfortable and you feel safe, and that's home. You don't want to have to go to work just to afford that.
Yeah. So going back to the topic at hand, then, inventory is low.
It is.
What do you do if you're looking seriously for buying something right now when inventory is so low? What's your suggestion for people who are like adamantly looking and trying to find something that fits their needs?
So we need to sit down and talk about our must-haves and our wants, because there's two different things. Must-have, like if you are busting at the seams, your family's growing, you have to have more space. That's a must-have.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want that big gourmet kitchen, well, that might not fit into your budget right now, or it may not even be out there.
Right.
Because your gourmet kitchen might cost you $500,000 and your budget's $200,000. So we need to compromise. We need to talk about must-haves and wants. And there's going to be some things that on your must-haves might not be able to be part of that because of the lack of inventory. Now, if you're in a situation that, your lifestyle can handle this for a little while, then maybe stay put. Maybe stay put till more inventory comes on. Will there be more inventory? Probably eventually. But this stems way back. I mean, this is way back in 2008 when a lot of the builders went out of business. That's where all of this lack of inventory has come from year after year after year. And then we have a lot more home buyers out there. So we have a tremendous amount of demand, and the builders just aren't keeping up. And then we have, back in when COVID, prices of lumber just shot up like 3-4 times. And so then it made it unaffordable to even build stuff. So, I mean, it's been, one hurricane after another with the housing industry. But it's still, I always tell everybody, real estate's still a great investment, regardless. And, you have to do what's best for you and your family. And if now's the time to make a move, then do it. If you can afford it, and do it, because housing prices are not going to crash. They're just going to continue rising because of the lack of inventory. That's what's driving it up.
Yep.
So, and I know we've talked about this before too. So, okay, yeah, interest rates are at 7.5%. That's high. Actually, that's norm, to be very honest with you. We're in the norm. And what's going to happen if the interest rates go back down that they're predicting? They're predicting probably that latter half of first quarter, beginning of second quarter next year, there might be a reduction in interest rates. If that happens, we talked about this, the housing prices are going to go up because you're going to have multiple offers. That's going to drive the housing prices up. So, as I said before, it'd be better to get into the buying cycle now than wait.
Yeah.
Because you're going to pay more for it down the line. Because you can always refinance interest rates. Interest rates are going to come down all the time.
Right.
But back when I bought my house 28 years ago. Okay, as a real estate agent, you would think that I would have moved a lot longer, but I like where I live. You know, it's a little modest house. I love it there. I paid 10% for my house. You know, I refinanced my house like 3-4 different times, and when I owned it, and you know, I paid like $60,000 for my house.
Wow.
28 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you, I was like, oh my gosh, can we afford that? Because back then it was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know? And now we just had an appraisal done on the house and it's worth over $300,000.
Jeez.
So see how that building your wealth, I mean, I'm not saying to hold on to your house for 28 years, but if you do, even 5 years, I always tell everyone, make a 5-year plan. You know, if you're going to do stepping stones, make a 5-year plan. Because that's what we did. When I first got married, we bought a single wide trailer and we had a 5-year plan. 5 years we're going to build our house and you know, and that's what we did. In 5 years we built our house. And now we're approaching, you know, retirement age, believe it or not. And I would like to have a bigger house. My husband thinks I'm crazy.
It's for those Christmas trees.
I know. Well, you're grandkids now, so
right. Bigger Christmases.
I want that gourmet kitchen.
Right.
But it's just the stepping stones, like what we talked about. So definitely got to start somewhere.
Yep. And I think it's also safe to mention that in order to build even more equity in that, the more fixing up of the things and sprucing up the landscape and stuff really builds more of that for you, so that when that 5 years is up, then you can look at it even more and go, oh my gosh, look how much we built in this in 5 years.
Right, but you've got to look at it. So a lot of it's going to be for personal use. Like, does somebody really need a jacuzzi tub?
Right.
Are you doing that for you? Because your buyer may want an open shower, tile shower, you know, so you got to be careful on what you spend. So if you're thinking about, all right, I'm going to upgrade this because I think I can get more money for it, it may not always be true. Now, we do know that kitchens sell, and so do bathrooms, right? So those where you want to put the most money. Now, everybody knows that granite countertops or quartz, you know, countertops, those are what buyers really like. They like the stainless steel non-fingerprint refrigerators, you know, which are enormously expensive.
Oh, I know.
Yes, they are enormously expensive.
Yeah, I remember those stimulus checks that came out? Oh, yeah, we got fingerprint. Or no fingerprint. Thing is like they say they're fingerprint proof or whatever.
There's
somehow
nothing.
My daughter and I both get fingerprints all over, and that's how.
I'm going to tell you, the only thing that I think is non-fingerprint are those plain white
all the white ones,
refrigerators. Yeah. You know that.
Yep, the porcelain coating on top of them that they spray
everybody's
on.
like, oh, that's just 280s or 290s.
Those are those pea green ones back in the day that we had.
I actually walked into a house the other day and it had those 1950s green toilets and tubs.
Did it really?
Like, that was totally like walking back into 1950.
Yeah.
It was in pristine condition. All the tiling. It had the pink tile and
That's
all of that.
funny.
And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I did that one other time. There was a house in Greenville. And it was like walking into the 1970s, and it had like the green shag carpet and the orange Formica tops.
Yep.
And it was in pristine condition too. Like, they never used it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was really cool. Like, I thought that was super cool. But the buyers are like, oh.
Yeah. Oh no.
But I'm a 1970s gal. So.
Well, I had an old guy that I had worked for back in Florida, and he moved out to Denver. And when he got out there, he was like, oh, I don't have much of anything to do, so I'm going to put my passion to work, which was he loved the mid-century stuff.
I love that.
And he went out and he would go to all these different auctions and do all this stuff, and he would buy and then spruce up, fix up. That is very handy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would resell those to people who are looking to remodel their homes into a mid-modern century. And it was like, or
That's a great idea.
however you want to say it, but it was unbelievable the stuff that he had. Like the old console record player radios, you know, they had the 8 tracks to stick in, all those kinds of stuff. And he's like, there's a huge market for it, and it's a big market. And I would have never thought that. But then, like you know, I look at a house now when we were looking and we saw it, and I was like, oh no, too old. Like way too many things I've got to redo on that one. You know, not that it's ugly or anything. It's just not what
it's not your style.
I'm looking for.
Right,
you know,
right.
As opposed to somebody might look at that and be like, oh,
this is cool.
this reminds me of my childhood, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. This is like grandma's house, like we step right back in time.
Yeah.
So again, I think it all goes down to what fits your needs, what hits your preferences.
What feels like home to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about. I mean, there's some people that absolutely love that vintage, like the 2-story houses with a wraparound porch with a thick wood, you know, and the trim. I'm one of those, like the all natural wood floors, and I'm just like, this, yes, and it has creaks everywhere.
Yeah.
Like that takes you back to grandma's house,
Yep.
you know, and that just feels like home. So.
There's something charming about a house that has character to it.
Oh yes,
you know,
absolutely. The more character, the better. The built-ins, all of that stuff.
It's strange, but one of the things that I always like seeing when we were touring some of the older houses is looking just usually inside of the kitchen somewhere, and like on one of the doorways, you see the little notches where their kids grew up, and you're just like, man, that is awesome. That's so cool
awesome.
that they didn't repaint over that just because they're selling the house.
Right.
You know, that I don't even know that I could repaint over something like that if I saw
Well, they probably
it.
couldn't bring themselves to do that.
Right.
You know, if it was me, I would have took the board down and replaced it.
Right. Well, that's what I was like, you know,
board.
if something like that were to come up on a house like that we bought or something like that, I'd be like, let's pull this down, find out who the seller was, and let's make something cool for them that's a memento of that. You know?
That would be awesome.
So just as, you know, it's something that's memorable for them, you know, and then it doesn't take much to replace some, you know, trim or anything. $30 and some paint, you're good, you know?
Yep, and you just make somebody else
Exactly.
day.
Yep. So yeah, lack of inventory. It's wild.
It
but
is.
You can still get through
You've
it.
been in the home shopping, you know what it's like. So
We finally found one. Now we just gotta sell our house. If you're listening, you want to buy a house. Buy my house. Yeah. So I mean, it's exciting. The whole home buying process is fun. I think the selling portion is very stressful, but you know, I think that the thing that's more stressful is when you find that house and you're like, I just want to move in now.
Now we need to really get serious about it.
Yep.
So it's kind of a double whammy
Yep.
as far as stress goes, because now you're like, oh man, I got to figure out how to get this, you know,
Yep.
how I can make this dream of this happen, like. But it'll come all together.
Yep. So just hopefully those rates go down and then people start going, oh, okay, we can breathe again. Let's do this. But, you know, is what it is. So advice for somebody who is looking in closing, what do you think is the takeaway from all this?
If you're looking, make your must-have and your want list. Sit down with a real estate agent professional and, you know, really partner with them, because that's your first step, to be honest with you, because agents really have insight of if there is houses out there that you're not seeing on Zillow or Realtor.com. I mean, we've got the in, so you want to partner with somebody that you trust and you jive with, and then go find that house.
All right. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks to do yet another podcast for you. Make sure that you go to all of Mary's socials and you check them out and see what she's got available, and all the resources that she has on right here on her YouTube channel of all the different tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff that might just help you. You might find something in there. So check out the topics that she has. She has tons of them and very helpful.
Yeah, thanks for visiting, and I look forward to giving some more information in a couple weeks.
Until next time, bye.
Bye.